Well, this is worrying. Last night there was a meeting of the 1922 committee, which is a very, very, shall we say, influential backbench grouping of MPs that is essentially designed to hold the Conservative Prime Minister to the task. And indeed, they are really, shall we say, very often the power behind the throne. Now, we talk about the ERG a lot, but the 1922 committee is not about advocating political change. What it is for is about the last Tory manifesto and insisting that the current Tory Prime Minister holds those manifesto promises to account and is brought before the committee to answer why hasn't he done them yet, or how are things turning out for such promises and when will we expect to see them. Now, of course, this is but the first of, I'm sure, Johnson's first few couple of 1922 committees. However, it is very worrying that, as we've said before, and we haven't really said this before, but we've been seeing the EU being very, very annoyed at the fact that there are AstraZeneca plants here in the UK that are meant to be producing vaccines meant for the EU, but are not arriving to the EU. About roughly 10 million AstraZeneca vaccines have arrived from the EU, but the vaccines that are being produced here aren't necessarily arriving in the EU, which again is worrying. And Johnson's credo to this seems to be that greed is good, and it revives the Thatcherite saying, and that led to a lot of very, very worrying policies back then in the 80s. And unfortunately, I think we're in for the same, but again, we've talked about that before, versus the EU's mantra, which is no one is free until we're all free. Even people like Viktor Orban or the Netherlands far-right guy has actually praised the EU for their stance on this, that we aren't all free until we're all free. And I think that's great. And here's the thing. Many other countries are also within the EU, but are also buying their own vaccine stock as well. The EU is also buying stock as well and then distributing it to its member countries. But we were told, oh, you can't do that. But apparently these countries are and can do it. So once again, it's another bogus Brexit lie exposed again. So before we jump into today's article on Johnson's meeting with the 1922 committee, please do remember to hit that like and share button. And of course, down below there is a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link called Buy Me a Coffee, where you can, well, buy me a coffee. And thank you to all those people that do support me that way. So this report comes from The Guardian, and the title is COVID, Greed and Capitalism are behind the vaccine success, Johnson tells MPs. The UK's successful vaccine rollout was thanks to greed and capitalism, Boris Johnson has told Conservative MPs during a private call. Several of those present confirmed the Prime Minister had made the remarks during an end-of-term Zoom meeting with the Tory backbenchers known as the 1922 Committee. On Thursday evening, 2 days before the Commons breaks for Easter, Johnson had hailed the fact that more than 28 million people had been given a first jab in the UK, saying the reason we have the vaccine success is because of capitalism, because greed, my friends, because of greed, my friends. And immediately afterwards, he tried to backpedal and withdraw what he had said, according to MPs. One whom added that the MP made a joke about how the details of the 1922 committee virtual meeting often leak. Downing Street has not so far denied the account, but has refused to issue a comment. Opposition MPs condemned the PM's remarks, pointing out that they came on the anniversary of the first coronavirus lockdown. Labour backbencher Barry Sherman called it an obnoxious comment on this day of all days, while his colleagues and colleague Angela Eagle tweeted, "Altruism, not greed, will get us through this." Liberal Democrat Lila Moran, who also said that the Prime Minister's intervention here was not helpful. Some of those on the call also sought to add context to Johnson's words, saying that he'd been talking generally about how big pharmaceutical firms managed to safely create vaccines at record speed, and not the ongoing row with the EU. One called it a light-hearted, off-the-cuff comment. But the remarks will still risk escalating tensions with Brussels. Given Johnson has previously been keen to avoid getting drawn into a war of words with the European leaders, despite the threat of a vaccine export ban to the continent. On Tuesday, Johnson suggested that he would not engage in the tit-for-tat export ban, with sources saying that the portrayal was still to calm the tensions rather than escalate with threats. Speaking at a Number 10 press conference hours earlier to mark the 1-year anniversary of lockdown, Johnson said, "We in this country don't believe in blockades or any kind of vaccines or vaccine material. That is not something in this country we would dream of engaging in." And another point in this call with the Tory MPs, Johnson admitted that the local elections were due to take place in May would be difficult, said one MP. They also said that he laid into the BBC, describing it as detached from a lot of viewers and suggesting the corporation bosses should move more in line. Again, like I say, very, very worrying comments. And like I say, this is not going to help Johnson in this, coming battle, because here's the thing. It seems to be that Johnson has basically ordered that all vaccines manufactured for COVID in this country are now being snaffled up. And here's the thing. AstraZeneca also has a contract with the European Union. And currently it is being unable to fulfill that contract, partly because of the British government, which, by the way, bought it at twice the price of the European Union and decided to roll out the vaccine before even basic safety checks had been done. We are now seeing that as a result, there have been some causes of blood clots being caused by this, and this should be very well known. We should be on the lookout for this, and this should be a known factor. And here's even the worst thing. Because Johnson was in such a rush to buy these vaccines, Johnson signed up to what was called an indemnity clause. I think that's what they call it, by Pfizer, so that they couldn't be sued by potentially any wrongdoing of these vaccines. So the people who develop blood clots, who could go on to potentially affect them for the rest of their life, maybe if it caused them to have a stroke or maybe something even worse, they then cannot sue Pfizer for what their vaccine caused them to do, as with many other vaccines you can do. And bear in mind, this actually is a really, really low rate. We are probably, even scientists say this is really low, and about 5 people so far has happened in the UK. But through Europe, it's happened to about 30 people. Now, those 30 people will be able to get compensation for what has happened to them and their of what happened to them, of what was caused by that vaccine. But those 5 people, and who knows how many other people it could affect in the UK, we know so far there have been 5 of these blood clot cases. They will not be able to be entitled to compensation. So, also as well, we've got to see and be pushing for a public inquiry into the coronavirus, and we have to push for it because Johnson and the Tories are certainly not in the mood for a public inquiry. Trust me on this one. I think they're going to do everything they possibly can to put it off for as long as they possibly can. And they'll be using the excuse of, we can't have it yet because it's still ongoing. And yet, many of the problems we saw in this country were down to Johnson and his basically lack of speed and being able to do anything. And what we saw was at the local level and at the regional level, we had NHS, Public Health England were ready to go. We're ready to get into action, but we're held back by our government. And so hopefully we can hope that soon there will be an inquest, because I'm sure a lot, and I mean a lot, of Tory heads are potentially going to roll for it. But don't expect them to stand down, but expect the outcry from that and the essential fallout from that public inquiry to be quite big. So, as always, thank you for watching. Please do remember to hit that like and share button. And of course, down below, there is a link to my Patreon page and a one-off donation link. And as always, we'll see you all next time.